Welcome everyone. Today we will talk about SELinux. So SELinux is Security Enhanced Linux. It basically allows the administrator to have more control on who can access what onto the Linux machine. It is also popularly known as the Linux kernel security module that is defined with certain policies which includes the access control list, and basis of this list the SELinux either block or allow the access onto the files and folder. So why it was required to develop the SELinux? So in case when our Linux machine is compromised, then the unwanted user can gain access on all the file folder. To avoid this, this SELinux concept was developed. In the coming video, we will see how SELinux is defined and how it works. Let's quickly talk about the access control systems in the Linux machine. So one is the discretion and second is mandatory. So discretion is when an access is given basis of a particular user's belief. For example, if an administrator gives a particular user access onto the particular files, folder, or processes, then this type of access is known as the uh, discretion access. Whereas mandatory access is basis on the certain principles. Here in SELinux, it is predefined with all processes can access which files and folder. SELinux does this by adding the additional information on each processes, files, and folders. This additional information includes the SELinux user, role, type, and optionally the security level. This is known as the SELinux context. So, basis of this SELinux context, all the decision of allowing or blocking of the access is done by the SELinux. SELinux runs in three modes. The default mode is enforcing. In this mode, the SELinux is going to evaluate all the policies, and basis of that it is going to either block or allow the access. Second mode is permissive mode. In this mode, SELinux is not going to block any access, but it is going to notify us that there is a breach if some breach is there. This mode is helpful in the troubleshooting of any uh, issues found during the access control. The third is disabled one. In this mode, SELinux is neither going to block any access nor it is going to notify us. Let's quickly see on the machine what is the SELinux context and how it looks like. If we do ls-l, we just get a long list of files and folders on that particular folder. And if we just add up a capital Z, it is going to populate additional information, which is the SELinux context. Here U is user, R is role, T is the target policy type, and 0 is the security level. We will understand in detail what this means. Similarly, if we just do ps hyphen aux and grep it to the Apache process, systemctl start httpd. Oh, so now we can see this httpd process, and if we need to just get the SELinux context on this process, we'll just add the capital Z, and now we can get this additional information. Typically, how we read this is uh, all the files and folders which have this policy type matching with the HTTPD, the Apache process will have access to all those files and folders. We'll see this in by a detailed example also. Let's quickly see what is the current mode SELinux is running in. Get enforce, and we can see it is in permissive mode. With the get enforce command, we can see the current mode into which this Linux is running. We'll just use set enforce 1. Now it is in the enforcing mode. To make it back into the permissive mode, we will do set enforce 0. Now it is in the permissive mode. And to set it back again to the enforcing, we'll do just set enforce 1. The important thing here to understand is by using this get enforce and set enforce command, the mode is changed, but this is not the permanent one. When we will reboot this machine, the default which is in the configuration file, that mode will be applied. So we'll use SE status command to see the mode details. So it is showing from the configuration file, the policy is in enforcing, and right now it is also in the enforcing mode. Let's set enforce, do it 0, get enforce, and we can see it is in permissive mode, and we SE use SE status, and we can see the current mode is permissive, whereas from the configuration file it is enforcing. So if we just reboot this machine, it will again be in the enforcing mode. Let's quickly see where this configuration file is. Here is the configuration file. Let's just do cat. We can see. So SELinux, it is in the enforcing mode. And these are the three modes which are available with the SELinux. So enforcing, permissive, disabled. We have already talked about these three policies types. Here is the SELinux type. So there are three again. One is the targeted, into which we will focus in this video. And there is another also, minimum and MLS. MLS is multi-level security protection. If you just need to change the default mode of this SELinux to be in the disabled or permissive, then we need to just edit this configuration file. We'll go to the insert mode and we'll change this enforcing to permissive or disabled, and we'll save it and reboot it. And the default policy will be changed. Here, one more important thing which we need to remember is if we set the default mode of SELinux to be in the disabled, and then again we change it to the enforcing and reboot the machine, the SELinux is going to relabel all the files and folders in that Linux machine. So it may take some time to boot up, and it depends on the numbers of files and folders you have in that Linux machine. We will take an example of Apache service and understand how this SELinux blocks or allow the permissions in this Linux machine.